The joys of orgasm, the power of sexual surrender and difficulties. Having orgasm. Preface. I believe that the problem of blocked desire in women is one of the deepest wounds of our time. Millions of women, brilliant, capable, loving, still struggle to surrender to pleasure. For them, orgasm is not a celebration, but a battlefield of frustration, silence, and self-doubt. This suffering is not small. It cuts into marriages, ripples through families, and corrodes the soul. A woman who cannot release into her own pleasure often feels divided from her partner, her children, even from herself. Desire locked away is more than a private frustration. It is a hidden crisis of intimacy, confidence, and love. The tragedy is that most women who struggle with orgasm know almost nothing about their difficulty. They have been told they are fine, or worse, that the problem is theirs alone to endure. The silence around female frigidity has lasted for generations, breeding shame, myths, and a quiet despair that whispers, "You are broken." But the truth is the opposite. You are not broken. Your body was designed for pleasure, for orgasm, for the ecstasy of release. And the blockages that hold you back, whether fear, guilt, trauma, or simple lack of guidance, can be understood, worked through, and dissolved. This book is written to shatter the silence, to speak to every woman who has ever felt the ache of wanting more, who has ever cried after sex, who has ever wondered why surrender feels impossible. Science, psychology, and lived experience all point to one conclusion. Your orgasm is not a fantasy. It is your birthright. I have written these pages to show you that blocked desire can be freed, that the surrender you fear is the very key to your joy, and that the orgasm you long for is not only possible, it is waiting. Marie Robinson, MD, reimagined for today. Chapter 1, Paradise. Lost, never before have men and women had such a chance at happiness together. For centuries, love was bound by inequality and silence, but now we live in an age where, finally, the two sexes can stand side by side, equals in the boardroom, equals in the home, and most profoundly, equals in the bed. For the first time in human history, women are openly recognized as full participants in love. This is revolutionary. The myths that once claimed women were passionless have been swept away. We now know, through science and experience, that women have the same hunger for passion, the same potential for orgasm, and the same ability to soar to sexual ecstasy as men. But the story is not as simple as triumph. There is also tragedy. Millions of women still find themselves locked outside the gates of this new paradise. They want orgasm. They long for intimacy. Yet when desire calls, something blocks them. They remain stranded, aching, ashamed, and frustrated. This problem has been called many names: frigidity, sexual dysfunction, blocked desire. But what it means is simple: a woman who cannot fully enjoy physical love. Some feel nothing during sex. Some experience weak, unsatisfying orgasms. Some endure sex as if it were a duty. Others even feel pain where there should be pleasure. The cruel irony is that many of these women want love desperately. They long to give and receive passion, but their bodies hold them hostage. They stand at the threshold of paradise, unable to cross. It is like sitting before a banquet and starving, like holding a fortune yet never spending a cent. A legacy of lies to understand this tragedy. We must remember how recently women were denied their sexuality altogether. In the 19th century, the dominant image of woman was the Victorian ideal: pure, passionless, untouchable. To be good meant to be cold. Doctors of the time, respected authorities, not quacks, insisted that women simply lacked sexual feeling. One leading physician, Acton, wrote, "The majority of women, happily for society, are not very much troubled with sexual feeling of any kind." Another declared that any girl who showed desire was pathological. Another went further, branding female passion itself as abnormal. These men were not fringe voices. They represented the accepted science of their era, and women believed them. Generations of daughters were raised to fear their own bodies, to repress desire, to equate passion with shame. A revolution of truth. Only in the last century has this lie been overturned. Slowly, Science revealed the truth. Women are not cold statues. They are alive with fire. They are capable of passion equal to men, of orgasms as deep, as explosive, as consuming. This discovery was nothing short of revolutionary. The sexual revolution of the 20th century shattered taboos, stripped away ignorance, and taught women to claim their right to pleasure. For the first time, women could imagine stepping into equality not only in society, but in bed. And yet, despite this progress, millions remain blocked. The old chains may have been broken, but their weight lingers in the unconscious. The reality of blocked desire, what keeps a woman from surrendering to her own orgasm, is rarely her partner's fault, and it is almost never a matter of technique. Caresses, tricks, and mechanical instructions cannot touch the root. At best, they may distract. At worst, they deepen the block. True frigidity is psychological. It lives in the unconscious, often born in childhood or adolescence, shaped by fear, misinformation, or silence. A woman does not choose it. She cannot will it away. She cannot be blamed for it. Think of it like a stutter. No one chooses to stutter, and no amount of effort makes the words flow. But once the cause is understood, therapy can loosen the knot. So it is with blocked desire. With insight, knowledge, and courage, the block can be undone, and the body's natural rhythm can return. The damage of misconceptions over the years. Women have been fed harmful myths that deepen their despair. One of the most persistent has been the idea that a husband is responsible for awakening his wife. Books of the 1930s confidently taught men to stroke and caress for a precise number of minutes in erotic zones, promising that climax would follow. When it did not, women blamed themselves, men blamed themselves, and both suffered. But the truth is plain. No man can cure a woman's blocked desire. Not her husband, not a lover, not even a skilled seducer. Only she, with understanding and insight, can face the fears buried within her unconscious and free herself. Another damaging myth is the belief in a biological defect. Many women beg doctors for hormones, injections, or quick fixes. Gynecologists report that women ask weekly, sometimes daily, for hormonal treatments to spark their desire. But frigidity is rarely glandular. It is psychological, and psychological wounds cannot be healed with needles or pills. The most tragic misconceptions come from misguided medical advice. I recall the case of a young woman told by her doctor that her clitoris was too far from her vagina. He recommended surgery to move it closer so her husband's penis could stimulate it directly. Out of devotion, she submitted to the knife. For a few months, she experienced orgasm, but soon the block returned. Worse, the trauma of the surgery deepened her wound. Her problem was never anatomical. It was psychological. A hidden fear of pregnancy that, once uncovered and resolved, freed her. She went on to become both orgasmic and happily married. But the damage of that grotesque solution reminds us of how easily women's struggles are misunderstood. The path forward. The truth cannot be repeated enough. Blocked desire is not the woman's fault, not the husband's fault, not the result of bad anatomy or poor technique. It is a psychological knot, tied early, often before the woman even understood what sex was. It may come from repression in a Victorian home, or from the chaotic sexual permissiveness of the Jazz Age. It may be born of fear, guilt, or secrecy. But what is created in the mind can be undone in the mind. When a woman faces her hidden fears, when she learns the truths denied to her, when she replaces shame with knowledge, her desire can flow freely. And with that flow comes orgasm, intimacy, love. This book is written to give you that knowledge. It is not theory. It is a practical guide. Whether you are a wife who has suffered silently, a husband desperate to help, or a young woman entering her first love, these pages are meant to break the silence, clear away the myths, and open the path to your pleasure. You are not broken. You are simply blocked, and the block can be lifted. Beyond it lies your inheritance, joy, surrender, orgasm, paradise. Chapter 2. The Normal Orgasm. If you are to heal, you must first know what you are healing toward. So let me tell you, in full, what orgasm is. I will not whisper. I will not hide behind polite metaphors. I will describe orgasm the way it actually happens, the way it floods a woman's body, the way it takes her, shakes her, drowns her, and delivers her to peace. Why? Because for many women, the first step to release is simply knowing what they are supposed to feel. I have seen women, after hearing for the very first time a full description of orgasm, break open as if a door had been unlocked. Suddenly, their bodies understood what their minds had never been taught, and they came, for the first time in their lives. The female body of desire. Begin with your body. Many women know shockingly little of their own sex. Between your thighs lies not one organ, but a kingdom of pleasure. The outer lips, labia majora, soft, protective folds. The inner lips, labia minora, delicate, pink, alive with nerve endings. And above all, the clitoris, small in size, immense in power. The clitoris is the homologue of the penis. It swells, stiffens, throbs when aroused. It has a head, a shaft, a hood, and in its thousands of nerve endings, a single obsession, pleasure. Many women begin their erotic life here at the clitoris. Some carry its responsiveness for life. Others shift as maturity deepens to the greater flood of vaginal ecstasy. Beneath lies the vestibule, the entrance to the vagina, lined with the Bartholin's glands, which release the wetness of arousal. When desire is free, these glands flood like springs. When blocked, they dry, leaving the act of love raw, scraping, and painful. And then the vagina itself, the sheath, the passage, the place where woman swallows man whole. At rest, only 3 inches long, yet so elastic it can hold any penis, birth a child, and still return to embrace. It is within this chamber, stretched and filled, that the orgasm of the mature woman bursts into being. The rising storm. Orgasm begins not in the genitals, but in the mind. A word whispered, a hand brushed, the warmth of tenderness, the sting of hunger. A man's urgency may surge to his penis in seconds, but a woman's desire spreads like fire across her skin, neck, breasts, belly, thighs, before it gathers in her sex. As arousal builds, the body transforms. The heart pounds like a drum in battle, sometimes racing to 150 beats a minute. The lungs gasp, pulling for air, exhaling in ragged sighs. The blood surges, flushing the skin, hardening the nipples, swelling the clitoris until it strains against its hood. The vagina softens, deepens, wets itself. The cervix tilts upward, inviting penetration. Inside, the walls cling and pulse, readying for the storm, and the senses, how strange they become. The eyes blur, vision narrows, hearing fades. The face contorts not in smiles, but in something raw, twisted, almost painful. Kinsey was right. Women who fake pleasure give themselves away by smiling. The real orgasm face is closer to agony, because the body is straining past what it can bear. The breaking point. Then comes the peak. Every muscle is tense, every nerve stretched like a bowstring. The woman feels she cannot endure another second. Her hips writhe, her pelvis tips upward, begging for more, for deeper, for harder. Her entire being demands release. And then it breaks. The vagina convulses. The muscles spasm in waves, gripping and milking the penis, shuddering in pulses that ripple from her core to her belly, her thighs, her face, even down to her toes. Her head throws back, her breath catches, her body bucks. It is not one spasm, but many, a storm rolling through her, wave after wave, sometimes for seconds, sometimes for a full minute. Some women can ride it again and again, climax stacking upon climax, until she is left trembling, soaked, and spent. Sometimes the last orgasm is the fiercest, burning through her like fire. The afterglow. When the orgasm has emptied her, the storm passes. The heart slows, the blood withdraws, the muscles release. A deep calm spreads, almost holy, and then love floods back in. The woman, exhausted yet glowing, wants nothing but to hold, to be held, to stay wrapped in the tenderness of the man who has shaken her body to its depths. There is nothing like it. No race run, no drug taken, no prize won can equal the shattering, consuming, annihilating joy of orgasm. It is not merely pleasure. It is unity. For many, it feels like a glimpse of the divine, a reminder that man and woman were made for this, to lose themselves and find themselves again in each other. The bond. Orgasm is not only ecstasy, it is glue. It is the strongest bond between man and woman. It redeems compromise, makes sacrifice sweet, transforms ordinary life into partnership. Remember, Tennessee Williams' A Streetcar Named Desire. Blanche, bitter and frigid, sneers at her sister's rough working-class husband. She nearly convinces Stella to leave him, but then Stella remembers the pinwheels, the bells, the explosions of their love. And she stays, because no sermon, no social rule, no sneer can compete with the force of orgasm, the mark of womanhood. Orgasm is not just climax. It is the sign of psychological and sexual maturity. It means a woman has faced her fears, broken through repression, and claimed her own body. To come, fully, freely, repeatedly, is not a luxury. It is the birthright of woman. It is the proof that she is no longer frozen, no longer withheld, but alive in her deepest self. For the woman who has it, orgasm is paradise. For the woman who cannot, it is exile, and this book is your way back. Let us repeat some of the things we have just said. The rising storm of arousal sex begins not in the genitals, but in the brain. A touch, a word, a look, a memory, all can set the chain in motion. For men, desire often surges directly into the penis, swelling it within seconds. For women, desire spreads first across the skin, a wave of sensation sweeping the body before focusing in the genitals. This difference matters. It explains why women are slower to readiness, why patience and tenderness matter as much as urgency. With arousal, the body transforms. The heart races, sometimes leaping to 150 beats per minute, as if running a sprint. Blood pressure surges, lungs gasp, muscles tighten. The body flushes, nipples stiffen, the clitoris rises. Bartholin's glands flood, the cervix secretes, and the vagina becomes a living sheath of warmth. And then something curious. The senses dull. Vision narrows. Hearing fades. The face twists not into a smile, but into a mask of strain, even of torment. Kinsey observed this paradox. Prostitutes who fake climax by looking happy betray themselves. For a true orgasm, face looks more like one in pain. The body becomes a battlefield of tension. Muscles trembling, breath fractured, nerves ablaze. The woman feels she cannot bear one more moment. And then, release. The climax. Orgasm strikes like a storm breaking. Muscular spasms seize the vagina, waves rippling through pelvis, torso, arms, legs, even the soles of the feet. The woman throws her head back, arches her hips, pulls the man deeper, demanding fullness. For seconds, or sometimes for a whole minute, the spasms roll, each one a crest of pleasure. Some women ride 2, 3, or more orgasms before their partner's climax. Sometimes the last is the strongest, the most exquisite. When orgasm satisfies, the tension discharges completely. The heart slows, blood pressure falls, breathing softens. Muscles relax, calm spreads through the body like a tide receding. Psychologically, there is peace, tenderness, a profound love for the partner who shared the storm. Many women want to hold, to linger, to melt in the afterglow, the ecstasy and its meaning. There is nothing else in human experience like orgasm. No exercise, no achievement, no drug, no mystical trance parallels its intensity, its totality, its devastating pleasure. Small wonder poets and mystics compare it to heaven, to union with God, to the lost Eden where male and female were one. But let us not leave it in the realm of poetry alone. Orgasm has a very practical role. It is the strongest glue of marriage, the anchor of love. It justifies compromise, redeems sacrifice, makes daily life bearable. It is the crown of union, the promise that two bodies in surrender can make one world. Consider the scene in Tennessee Williams' A Streetcar Named Desire. Blanche, bitter and frigid, tries to lure her sister Stella away from her rough working-class husband. She appeals to pride, to class, to family shame, and Stella almost yields, until her husband reminds her of the bells she hears, the pinwheels she sees when they make love. At once she knows where she belongs. The bond of orgasm is stronger than any argument, the sign of maturity. To experience orgasm fully is more than pleasure. It is proof of maturity. It is the sign that a woman has broken through fear, repression, and ignorance, and has claimed her own sexuality. It is the badge of womanhood in its fullness. For the woman who cannot, the absence is agony. For the woman who can, it is paradise. Chapter 3. The Not Impossible She. What does a mature woman look like? Not in hair color or hip size, but in soul, instinct, and daily life. What are her signatures? Her temperament, her loves, her erotic rhythm, her way of moving through the world? I insist on drawing her first, before we study blocked desire. For the same reason a surgeon studies healthy tissue before operating. To recognize distortion, you must be intimate with the original. Normal has been misused, even weaponized. There were eras that canonized frigidity as virtue, and others that mistook aggression for liberation. Both produced unhappiness. I will not repeat those errors. I will describe a woman I have met many times. An achievable maturity, not a fantasy. Patients bristle when they first hear her. They call her naive, submissive, impossible. And then later, sometimes through tears. Could I become anything like that? The hostility is surface. The hunger is real. This woman is an idealized composite, but not a daydream. She arises from what biology, psychology, and lived experience repeatedly reveal. You have probably known a version of her already. Perhaps she's the friend who radiates calm, the mother who laughs easily, the lover who seems to glow after merely a glance from her husband. She is not rare, she is simply integrated. Let us be precise about what does not define her. Not height, not wealth, not dress size, not Ivy League diplomas, not whether she works outside the home or never does. She may be freckled or olive-skinned, broad-hipped or boyish. None of that matters here. What matters is what follows. At home in the world. Deep in her marrow, she feels safe. Safe with herself. Safe with her man. Safe in the long arc of life. This is not denial of danger. It is a grounded trust, the opposite of the jittery vigilance that corrodes love. Because she is inwardly secure, she chooses a man who is good for her. He may be a mason or a surgeon, a bus driver or a composer. What binds him to her is devotion, masculine steadiness, and a willingness to meet her with heat and tenderness in the bed they share. She could have fallen for a charming wreck at 20. She does not marry him at 30. Her security expresses itself as generosity. She wants to give time, care, laughter, food, touch. Psychiatry has a name for this current that runs through her. Essential feminine altruism. It is not martyrdom. It is joy in outpouring. It keeps her light when life turns heavy. It prevents rancor from nesting in her chest. There is, beneath or beyond creeds, a private religiosity in her, a spontaneous reverence for creation. She might call it God or avoid labels entirely, but the feeling is unmistakable. Tides, moon, seasons, the lift and fall of life. Marriage registers in this register as sacrament, not contract. Fidelity is not a rule to her. It's an obvious expression of the bond she treasures. 2. Her erotic signature. She reaches orgasm, usually reliably during intercourse. Sometimes twice, on lusty nights more. The count does not matter. The kind does. Her climax is vaginal, cascading through her body like a sequence of detonations, beginning deep and radiating outward until even her toes shudder. When she speaks of it, rarely, she uses poetry because prose will not hold it. A beauty so intense I could cry. Like riding a rhythm that swallows you whole. Like going over the falls, barrel and all. She's not modest in the bedroom, she is playful, unabashed, a little shameless in the best way. Praise turns her brighter. She will initiate, unbuttoning him with a grin, and if she senses he's depleted, she changes course without the sting of rejection. She knows what too many manuals ignore. The man must be physically ready, or the act cannot occur. Because she understands this, she does not treat him like a vending machine. Insert demand, receive erection. Her generosity protects his potency. Her sensitivity never needles his fears. Equally, when he is ready, she is nearly always willing, knowing how quickly her own body catches fire when the dance begins. If once in 100 times her body stays cool, she still savors the unmistakable satisfaction of giving him pleasure. This is not servility. It is erotic intelligence. She follows his mood with delight. If he's fierce, she becomes flame. If he's tender, she melts like honey. If he wants to experiment, she becomes conspirator and acrobat. Technique can be fun, but she intuits the truth. Technique is never the main event. Union is. Promiscuity does not interest her. She notices other men as one notices handsome architecture. Their attractiveness honors her man's sex, but it does not tempt her. Masturbation? She may have tried it, found it thin and private, a snack where she prefers a feast. For her, sexuality is inherently mutual. 2 bodies, 2 souls, 1 storm. 3 self-love that frees, not binds. She likes her body, not because it is perfect, no body is, but because it is hers, and it gives and receives pleasure extravagantly. She does not sneer at menstruation as a curse. She experiences it as a rhythm, a tide that marks her as a woman. Clean as a cat, neat as a blade, she dresses to please herself and the man who undresses her. She enjoys a mirror but is not its prisoner. Her self-love has a striking quality. It is detachable. She can project it outward without loss, onto a child's cheekbones or a husband's hard-won dignity, rejoicing in their beauty and wins. She exaggerates his strengths in the way love does, and minimizes flaws that do not threaten the home. This is not delusion. It is preference. It feeds the bond. 4. The maternal current. The maternal instinct pervades her, not as a duty checked off a list, but as a fierce delight. In lovemaking, the fantasy that this act might make her with child runs like a bright thread through arousal. Often, shedding fear of pregnancy transforms her sex life from lovely to immeasurable. I have heard it again and again after therapy has dissolved terror. Before, I lived in one room of a mansion. Now I have the whole house. It was fun. Now it feels cosmic, as if I belong to the universe. Pregnancy, when it comes, deepens her sense of kinship with everything that grows. Birth is not horror but heavy weather she was built to sail. Nursing, when possible, is a proud extension of the same continuity. Body into body, love into milk. Careers? She may have one and be excellent at it. But if you ask her what matters most, she does not hesitate. Love, home, the living project of family, those form her axis. She does not resent stepping back when children are small. Later, she can, and often does, step forward again. Even then, the tug of adult children and new grandchildren outpulls spreadsheets and titles. 5. Aging as deepening. She ages with the same rightness she lived by at 30. She gives when giving is needed, and, crucially, she lets go when release is merciful. She allows her children their freedom without guilt trips or sabotage, earning a kind of permanent tenderness in return. Menopause does not dim her orgasm. Intimacy often ripens. The house quiets. Their bed becomes a country of shared jokes, seasoned lust, and wordless understanding. At the end, she is not frantic with regret. She has the unmistakable calm of a woman who did what she was made to do. Love, largely. And she regards death as the next unveiling, not the void. Why this portrait matters, right now. This is not a porcelain figurine. It is a living archetype, not impossible. Aim at it, and even before you unravel the knots of frigidity, your days will begin to change. Fights thin out. Blame melts. A husband who feels your shift toward generosity responds with tenderness, patience, and a renewed erotic eagerness. Your body notices. Therapy moves faster when the goal is clear. With a North Star above you, the path out of blocked desire stops feeling like a maze and becomes a road. As we turn to the whys and wherefores, the histories, the injuries, the kinds of frigidity and their cures, hold this woman in mind. Not as a ruler to beat yourself with, but as a compass. A reminder of what is possible for a woman who has shed fear and claimed her fire. Because this is the point. You are not broken. You are merely blocked. And the woman I have sketched here, she is not someone else. She is you, unobstructed. Here is takeaway point for you. She is not modest in the bedroom. She is playful, unabashed, a little shameless in the best way. Praise turns her brighter. She will initiate, unbuttoning him with a grin. And if she senses he's depleted, she changes course without the sting of rejection. She knows what too many manuals ignore. The man must be physically ready, or the act cannot occur. Because she understands this, she does not treat him like a vending machine. Insert demand, receive erection. Her generosity protects his potency. Her sensitivity never needles his fears. Equally, when he is ready, she is nearly always willing, knowing how quickly her own body catches fire when the dance begins. If once in 100 times her body stays cool, she still savors the unmistakable satisfaction of giving him pleasure. This is not servility. It is erotic intelligence. She follows his mood with delight. If he's fierce, she becomes flame. If he's tender, she melts like honey. If he wants to experiment, she becomes conspirator and acrobat. Technique can be fun, but she intuits the truth. Technique is never the main event. Union is. Promiscuity does not interest her. She notices other men as one notices handsome architecture. Their attractiveness honors her man's sex, but it does not tempt her. Masturbation? She may have tried it, found it thin and private, a snack where she prefers a feast. For her, sexuality is inherently mutual. 2 bodies, 2 souls, 1 storm. Chapter 4. What is frigidity? The psychology of blocked desire. You have seen what a woman can be when love and orgasm flow freely. Now we must name the shadow. If you do not understand what frigidity is and why it roots so deeply, you will chase gadgets and techniques and miss the cause entirely. By frigidity, I mean, in the plainest terms, an inability to enjoy sexual love to its full potential. Most often, an inability to reach the deep, body-wide orgasm described in Chapter 2. But the picture is not binary. There are degrees and types. Know them, and you will know yourself. Degrees, from numbness to almost there. Think of a spectrum. Absolute sexual anesthesia, the deep freeze. A woman in this state feels nothing. No swelling, no lubrication, no pleasurable response to touch on clitoris, labia, or within the vagina. Kissing, skin-to-skin closeness, the secondary erotic zones, dead to sensation. Intercourse is often dry and painful. A competent gynecologist finds no physical cause. The block is psychological, total, and still treatable. The almost there woman, on the threshold. She flushes, wets, swells, her heart races, her breath breaks, her body begs for release, yet climax doesn't come, or comes rarely, weakly, unsatisfyingly. This is the sort of blockage that may melt after a child is born, or after a single illuminating conversation, or with a brief course of honest therapy. It is close to thaw. Between these poles lie many shades. One measure is frequency and intensity of orgasm. Another is felt satisfaction, your private truth. No one else can rate it for you. If your climax is chronically thin, if you rise and then drop through air, there is a degree of frigidity present. Types, where the block sits. Beyond degree, where the response lives matters. 2 patterns appear again and again. A. The clitoridal, so-called masculine type. Her arousal may be strong in foreplay and early intercourse, but her climax is confined to the clitoris, localized and narrow. The vagina never ignites. The pleasure does not cascade through her whole body. Often she can climax only by direct clitoral stimulation, her own hand or her partner's, before or after intercourse, not during. For many such women, the penis in the vagina dampens sensation, even feels like an intruder. This is not good enough. It is a form of frigidity, widespread, yes, but still a block. When therapy unlocks the true vaginal orgasm, these women look back and say, without shame, but with clarity, I didn't know what I was missing. We will devote much space to this type because it is common, stubborn, and exquisitely curable with understanding. B. Sexual anesthesia, the global dimmer. This is the term for low or absent sensation across the genital field, plus weak or absent orgasm. The entire system is turned down. Again, treatable, the cost, not just in bed. If frigidity were only less pleasure, we could shrug. It is not. It shapes personality. The block is rarely born last year. It is almost always rooted in early fear, shame, misinformation, or trauma. Around that buried core, traits crystallize. Denial, misplaced blame, combativeness, brittle pride, chronic dissatisfaction. The rule of thumb I have learned at the couch: the more severe the sexual block, the more neurotic the behavior, and the more damage radiates through marriage and into children. Women will often admit the sexual difficulty. How could they not? What they resist is the second part, that their moods, quarrels, and choices are linked to it. But they are, a case in plain daylight. An associate professor, brilliant, articulate, came insisting her only issue was a silly little block around orgasm. No clitoral pleasure, no vaginal pleasure, a vague tingling on the labia at best. If I could just fix that, she said, everything else is ideal. Her husband, when seen, described a home held hostage by competition. He whispered before speaking lest she contradict him. The older child had started to tick. Both pregnancies had been laced with fear and followed by depression. None of this surprised me. Her sexual anesthesia had already told the tale. Once she recognized that she had been competing with her husband instead of marrying him, tenderness returned, and with it the desire to understand herself further. When the fear was faced, the bed warmed. When the bed warmed, the home softened. This is not magic. It is the architecture of the psyche. Frigidity distorts reality. One cured patient said it best. I was looking at life through a distorting glass. No wonder I chose so badly. She had ricocheted from promiscuity to a marriage with an alcoholic. Thank God no children yet. Today she is remarried, orgasmic, and a different kind of mother. When arousal rises, but orgasm does not. Immediate fallout. Remember the physiology of the sexual climb. Heart racing, blood surging, glands pouring, muscles taut like cables. Orgasm discharges this storm and leaves calm. No orgasm, no discharge, and the body pays. Psychic backlash. Acute frustration that flips into anger. At self, at partner, at life. If the anger is unconscious, it leaks as headache, nausea, throat tightness, chest flutters, shortness of breath, tremors, floods of tears, and yes, misdirected rage at husbands and children. Somatic backlash, low back pain, pelvic ache, uterine cramps, vaginal pains lasting hours, restlessness, insomnia that mocks you at 3 a.m. Your body tried to complete a circuit and could not. Most women do not connect last night's unspent arousal with today's quarrel, or migraine, or heaviness. Connect it. It matters, and understand the scale. Blocked desire is common. Conservative estimates have long placed it around 40% of women. Whatever the exact figure, it is vast, and it is ruinous to happiness. Two paradoxical types. Two patterns seem to contradict everything I have just said. They don't, but they look that way at first glance. Psychic frigidity, orgasmic body, unreachable heart. This woman climaxes fully and often. You would not distinguish her sexual response from that of the mature woman in Chapter 3. Yet she cannot attach. Relationships spin out. Affairs stack up one by one. Her sexuality matured. Her capacity for bonded love did not. The wedge is often an early seduction or boundary violation that splits sex from trust. She is not the nymphomaniac of pulp fiction. She is usually serial, not indiscriminate. But she is unmoored. Her work is not to improve technique. It is to heal the split that keeps her from staying. The all-mother, frozen body, warm heart. Here, the erotic field is zero. No arousal, no orgasm. And yet her character is robust and loving. She is deeply devoted to husband and children, altruistic, steady, sane. The marriage often works because the husband's sexual drive is modest and his vanity blessedly small. Unconsciously, she chose a man whose needs matched her capacity. I do not insist that she must change. Frigidity is a clinical target because it harms. If it does not, if she is not miserable, if children thrive, if her husband is content, there may be no mandate to treat. A caution, however. She must watch for subtler distortions, overprotection, difficulty letting children go, control disguised as care. If those appear, the block is taking its toll after all. Naming without flinching. I will use frigidity and block desire interchangeably. The former is historically loaded. The latter is clinically gentler, but both point to the same thing. A woman's erotic system has been arrested. You did not choose it. You are not to blame for how it formed. You are responsible, now that you see it, for learning what it is and unlearning what froze you. Because this is the good news threaded through the hard news. What is created in the mind can be undone in the mind. When you understand the origin, fear of pregnancy, contempt for the body, a childhood shock, a silent mother, a shaming father, the ideology that taught you to compete with the very man you want to love, the knot begins to loosen. When the knot loosens, the pelvis follows. When the pelvis follows, paradise returns. We will take up origins, mechanisms, and cures in the chapters ahead. For now, keep 3 facts on your tongue like a prayer. Frigidity is common and serious, for you, your partner, your children. Frigidity is psychological, and thus responsive to psychological understanding. Frigidity is curable, not by tricks, not by surgery, not by hormones in most cases, but by facing what bound you and choosing again and again to be free. You are not broken. You are blocked. The difference is everything. Chapter 5. The War Between Men and Women. When you place the mature woman beside the frigid woman, the questions arrive like hail. Why do some women become frigid? Has this always plagued womankind? Or is it a wound of our age? And if true sexual freedom is so sweet, why do some cling to the block even when help is near? To answer honestly, you must know some history. Every individual case is psychological, yes. But the raw materials of those psychologies were poured by social forces, and over the last 2 centuries they have been uniquely destructive to women. If you see this clearly, your own story will stop feeling like a puzzle and start looking like a map. What follows is the history of a war, bitter, relentless, fought in public, in parlors, and finally inside women's bodies. Call it what it is, the war between men and women. In too many households, it still rages. Before the war, the home that once was. The match that lit this war was struck at the end of the 18th century. The spark was seemingly harmless, the steam engine. Yet the Industrial Revolution it powered inverted almost everything: work, class, the city, the country, the way we made things, and the way we made meaning. To understand its cost, see the world from just before it. Society was largely rural. The home was the center of life. Most homes were farms, and even in towns, industry meant home industry. Clothes were woven and cut within the house. Food was grown and stored there. Tools were mended there. A man built his own walls. A woman spun, wove, cooked, brewed, laundered, and kept the whole enterprise breathing. Children learned at the mother's side. Reading and sums, yes, but also the full set of crafts that sustained a family. The woman's role was not decorative. It was central. If she faltered, the home faltered. If she died, disaster followed. She was needed, respected, indispensable. Where such need exists, sexual self-respect grows naturally. She was a woman in a home where womanhood mattered. In that economy, frigidity scarcely appears as a concept. Love, work, and family were integrated. Being needed nourished the feminine soul. Neededness, in turn, fed responsiveness, body and heart, the dispossession. Then the machines came. Factories bloomed, and men left the house to feed the mills. Manufactured goods displaced the woman's craft. The home's economic heart was pulled outside its walls. Schools removed the children from her daily tutelage. Slowly, steadily, the domestic center was hollowed out. At first, only a few felt it. Then it spread across classes and counties until no home remained untouched. Women woke to find themselves dispossessed of their economic role, their authoritative partnership with their husbands, their daily primacy with their children. The very structure that had affirmed their feminine worth was dismantled. She felt her womanhood itself devalued. Then she reacted, with a rage that took 2 forms. 2 reactions, 1 war. The public front. Feminism as masculinization. One reaction was loud and militant. It announced itself in pamphlets, speeches, and platforms. The argument ran thus: if the world no longer values woman's distinct role, the answer is simple. Become like men. Seek the same schooling, the same work, the same standards, the same powers, the same permissions. Reject anything that smells of specialness. In principle, some aims were corrective and sane. Abuses needed redress. But the spirit hardened around a deeper message. Female fulfillment equals approximation to maleness. Motherhood was recast as a trap, marriage as a contract to break at will. Sexual liberty, measured by male license, became the banner. The practical creed: exchange husband for boss, child for schedule, home for office, dependence on love for dependence on wage. The feminine was not defended. It was disowned. The result? Women won many public victories, and yet became no happier for it. Because beneath the reforms, the hostility to femaleness remained. To deny the feminine design in the name of freedom is not liberation. It is self-rejection dressed in new clothes. The private front, Victorian denial. The second reaction was quiet, but equally fierce. Victorian woman, wounded by dispossession, retaliated unconsciously by denying female sexuality altogether. She declared passion a male province and enshrined female frigidity as moral hygiene. Scientists of the day solemnly nodded along. Women learned to blush at their bodies, dread menstruation, and hide any hunger they might feel, especially from themselves. Victorian frigidity died publicly with the Great War. Its ghost did not. It still breathes in the shame that clings to female pleasure, in the contempt some mothers pass to daughters about bodies, cycles, pregnancy, and birth, the double inheritance. Modern women, then, inherit a pair of poisons. From the Victorian, a conviction that a good woman is unsexual, cold by design. From the masculinizing feminist, a conviction that the male role is the only respectable destiny. So drop your femaleness and compete, resent, supplant. Put either conviction in a marriage and watch the war move into the bedroom. Put it in a nursery and watch it move into the next generation. I have treated women raised by each type of mother. The lessons they absorbed were chillingly consistent. Shame about the body, disgust for menstruation, terror of pregnancy, punishment for childish curiosity about sex, contempt for the father as a figure to love or emulate. The result is predictable. Loathing of womanhood, and a nervous system that clamps shut when love asks it to open. It is no surprise, then, that so many psychiatrists agree on the source of much private misery: the childhood home, and within it, the woman's attitude, conscious or unconscious, toward femaleness, men, and love. How the war enters the bed. Women often admit their lack of orgasm. Harder for them is to admit the attitudes that drive it. Chronic opposition to the husband, competition instead of companionship, the quiet scorn that withers desire at the root. A case. A university historian came to me declaring that orgasmlessness was her only problem. To hear her tell it, the marriage was ideal. Her husband, seen separately, described a house combative to the bone. Constant contradiction, fights that left the eldest child twitching, pregnancies riddled with fear and followed by depression. None of this surprised me. The sexual anesthesia had announced it. When she finally saw that she had been married to the war, not to her husband, tenderness returned, and with it the body's permission to surrender. Another case. A woman, incandescent with rage, informed me that her husband would crawl on hands and knees before forgiveness. She had been totally frigid since their wedding night. In her mind she was spotless. He was culprit. I told her the history I am telling you now. How for 150 years, women have been instructed to reject their design, and then blame men for the misery that ensues. She listened, first hostile, then stricken, then newly sober. She began the only work that ever works, taking responsibility for her attitudes and changing them. Divorce was never mentioned again. Healing proceeded. Seeing one's responsibility is hard. Refusing it is fatal. It is to choose sexual suicide and call it morality. The flapper and the fallout. Victorianism's public grip broke. Masculinized freedom took the stage. The flapper was its cartoon, a woman wearing a man's mask. The fashion faded. The philosophy did not. For decades, girls have been tutored to devalue homemaking. Motherhood, patience, tenderness, and the joy of giving, all dismissed as lesser. In their place, rivalry with men, and the pursuit of male-shaped trophies. What has this produced? Not peace, not warmth. We have harvested restlessness, a rising divorce rate, neurotic children, confused sons, hardened daughters, and yes, frigidity by the millions. A society cannot train women to oppose their nature and expect love to thrive. Turn and live. If this is the tide that carried you here, turn. You will not find much applause for it. The war still has many recruiters, but you do not need applause. You need results. For a century and a half, women have blamed the outside world and refused the inner audit. If the blame had bought happiness, we could debate its merit. It has not. It has bought loneliness, blocked desire, endless skirmishes with the only man whose arms you actually want. The cure is not a slogan. It is a conversion of attitude, from opposition to partnership, from masculinization to feminine fullness, from blaming outward to working inward, from the ideology of coldness or rivalry to the practice of surrender, generosity, and erotic trust. This is not passivity. It is strength aimed in the right direction. When a woman stops warring with her own nature, the bedroom warms, the home steadies, and the children breathe easier. The body follows the heart. The orgasm follows the truth. Drop the war. Choose your design. It is not a step backward. It is the only step forward that leads to love. Chapter 6. Why Women Can Become Frigid. A young husband sat across from me. His wife had just begun treatment for frigidity, and he asked to see me alone. "I don't know how long this will take," he said quietly, "and I don't care. I didn't marry her for better only. I married her for worse as well." Statements like that lighten any heavy task. His steadiness helped me understand something else he wanted me to see. How eerily similar his childhood was to his wife's. Strict Puritan discipline. 2 brothers and a sister. Mothers who feared and despised sexuality. Fathers who were alternately punitive and withdrawn. Both fled the farm early, met in the city, married, and now faced the same old ghosts in their bed. You know the question I asked myself next, and I want you to ask it too. Why did she become frigid while he remained sexually normal? Extend the question. Why is frigidity so common in women while true impotence is rare in men? The answers expose why this problem is fundamentally psychological, and therefore, with will and understanding, curable. There are 3 major reasons women can become frigid. I will treat 2 here. The third belongs to the next chapter, the sexual drive in women and what biology requires. A lovely actress of mine, long struggling with frigidity, arrived one day changed. Her face softer, her movements unhurried, a light in her eyes. She wore a pink cape. At the threshold she unbuttoned it. "Let it fall between us," and said with a laughing bow, "Thus we can cast it away." Then she scooped it up and swirled it on again. "And thus we can put it on." It was theatrics, yes, but also truth. The feminine can be frozen and thawed, withheld and welcomed, cast off and reclaimed. To see why, we must begin with biology's logic. Species survival rests on reproduction. For humans and many other animals, reproduction occurs through sexual intercourse. The male deposits sperm inside the receptive female. Note the crucial asymmetry. The male must have an orgasm to deposit sperm. Without male climax, there is no conception. The male orgasm is biologically necessary to the continuation of the species. By contrast, the female need not climax for conception to occur. She must receive sperm, not necessarily orgasm. In this stark biological sense, and in this sense only, a colleague once put it neatly, the male orgasm is a necessity. The female orgasm is a luxury. Do not misunderstand me. I am not saying a woman's orgasm is less intense than a man's, nor am I saying it is optional to her psychological health. In human life, female orgasm is essential to maturity, to bonded love, to happiness. I am saying that biologically it is more exposed to disruption, more easily toppled by fear, shame, misinformation, trauma. Think of the male orgasm as deeply rooted oak. The female orgasm as a beautiful tree more shallowly rooted, exquisitely alive but more sensitive to storms. Shelter that tree, and it flowers riotously. Because female orgasm is so bound to the psyche, it can look from the outside almost volitional. I do not mean conscious refusal. I mean an unconscious decision the mind makes to survive conflict, closing rather than opening. Sometimes, rarely, a woman chooses even consciously to close the door. I knew such a woman, an older physician I admired. She married in 1904, a time still haunted by Victorian shame. She loved her husband but was completely frigid. After her third child, faint pleasure appeared, then grew. After her fourth, with intercourse resumed, she had a profound orgasm, her first. Instead of joy, she felt fright. Her training had condemned such pleasure. She deliberately resolved never to allow it again, and she succeeded. Her husband died years later. Only after his death did she learn what science had since taught, and understood the tragedy of her decision. Why tell you this? To show how exquisitely mind-dependent feminine sexuality is. If a grown woman can consciously extinguish full blooming orgasm at its height, consider how fragile the developing capacity can be in childhood and youth, where a mother's fear, a father's disgust, a teacher's shaming sentence can buckle the roots. The fear of motherhood and how it freezes desire. On the whole, women will walk through fire to become mothers. I once saw a woman of 35 who'd twice canceled her first appointment. Classic last-minute flight, I thought. When she did arrive, she was frank and steady. "I'm terrified of having children. I need to know why." "Was that why you canceled?" I asked. "Oh no," she smiled. "My children had the flu. One after another. How many children? 4. My husband and I want 6. We both laughed, but her fear was real, born from childhood shocks and ominous warnings. We resolved it. My point is not the punchline. It is that even with fear, her maternal instinct had carried her forward. The maternal drive is as fundamental in women as the drive to plant the seed is in men. It subserves the same end, the continuation of the race, and it is stubbornly resilient. If 19th century ideologues had crippled the maternal instinct to the degree they wounded women's sexual life, Western civilization would already be emptier by half. Though you cannot erase the maternal drive, you can twist it in a girl's mind so that it terrifies her. Mishandled, it becomes a shadow that stalks her bed. Here is the hard core. To gratify the maternal instinct, a woman tacitly places her life on the line. Not merely because childbirth carries now small physical risk, but because mother love outruns self-preservation. Every true mother knows the summons. I will die for my child if needed. I have read the stories you have read. Women running into burning houses, breaking free of firemen's arms, rescuing a fainting child from a collapsing hall, emerging burned but exultant because the child lives. That is not pathology. That is the maternal instinct defeating even the primal organismic law of self-preservation. Most women will never face flames. The daily form of this instinct is different. 1,000 gladly made preferences, time given, ambitions set aside, energy poured out, first to carry a child, then to raise one to strength. Healthy women do this without martyrdom. There are balances within them that preserve sanity and protect the child from suffocation. But imagine what happens when a young girl is taught, implicitly or explicitly, that motherhood is a trap, pregnancy a ruin, childbirth a horror, babies a theft. She will still, more often than not, desire children, but that desire will be laced with dread, and dread will reach for the sexual break. She will want love but fear its consequence. Her body will know the fear before her mind admits it. The easiest way for the body to avoid pregnancy is to avoid surrender, to become frigid. Woman's biological role is motherhood. Refuse it in the soul, out of fear, contempt, or borrowed ideology, and the personality withers. Accept it, not as servitude to a uterus, but as nobility, and feminine powers return. Fortitude, sacrificial love, joy that passes understanding. A letter came to a therapy group I advised. A woman who had joined for 4 months, then moved away. She had come to the group bitter, frightened of pregnancy, stuck in a joyless marriage. 3 months after moving, she wrote, "We are settled, and I can't wait to tell you. I'm going to have a baby. It is so different from my expectations. My fears and worries are gone. I didn't know life could be like this. If the doctor hadn't told me to stay quiet, I'd be dancing in the streets. Sam says I sound like a honeymooner, And he's delighted. To think what I deprived us of because of nonsense. I can barely remember what I used to complain about. I even feel a new love for my mother. Only sadness that she missed so much. When I asked her years ago how she felt pregnant, she snapped, "Put such thoughts out of your mind. You're young. Enjoy yourself. You'll know all about it soon enough. Too soon." Ominous, isn't it? I took her attitude whole without knowing it, until I aired it in group. I'm writing to say, the fears do go when you bring them into the light. Margaret, that is what surrender to true destiny sounds like. Not slavery, but relief, what these two causes teach. Female orgasm is exquisitely mind-dependent. It can be taught shut, and it can be taught open. Fear of motherhood is the fastest route to frigidity. Replace dread with reverence, and the body often follows. Both causes are psychological, and therefore open to psychological cure. Honest knowledge, the right attitude toward femaleness, and live trust in the maternal role as privilege, not prison. In the next chapter, we will take up the third major cause, and with it, the last big knot that must be untied if you are to move from blocked desire to the full jubilant surrender that is your due. Chapter 7. Anatomy and Destiny. We have named two major reasons women are deflected from full sexual maturity. Now we must speak of a third, equally decisive, and to many women, the most uncomfortable to face because it hides inside apparent success. I have already introduced the clitoridal woman. Now I must state plainly the implications. The female body contains two potential sites of orgasmic discharge, the clitoris and the vagina. This simple anatomical fact has vast psychological consequences because it offers a young woman, unconsciously, two paths, one that grows her into full womanhood, and one that strands her on an early shore. A man has one sexual organ for climax, the penis. There is no anatomical alternative. If early shocks block him, he becomes impotent, an unmistakable calamity, and his whole being rouses to reclaim potency. The pain motivates him. A woman's anatomy is more forgiving at first, and more treacherous in the long run. The mature woman's orgasm is vaginal. Her climax takes place within the canal, with the whole body answering, and it marks a personality that has ripened into true womanhood. The clitoral orgasm is localized on the clitoris. It excludes the vagina's participation, often runs independent of the penis, and is available early in development. If the growing girl becomes frightened of vaginal surrender, for any of the reasons we have already traced, she can block the vaginal pathway while continuing to enjoy clitoral release. Because she has never tasted the deeper thing, she does not miss it. Because she does not miss it, she does not seek it. Biology becomes destiny, with psychology as accomplice. Over time, the cul-de-sac deepens. Habits groove. By the age when she is ready for marriage, she has often built, unknowingly, a full neurosis to defend both her childish gratifications and her childish emotional needs. She arrives at the altar unripe, and the marriage suffers. Let me be unequivocal. A woman confined to clitoral orgasm is, in the psychiatric sense, frigid. Exact statistics are lacking. Clinical experience suggests it is widespread, perhaps the most common form of female frigidity in our society. Unhappily, recent decades have not helped. The popular reading of Kinsey insisted there is no meaningful difference between clitoral and vaginal orgasm, or worse, that all female orgasm is clitoral. Psychiatry's best observers, 60 years of careful study, have consistently found the opposite. The distinction is real, universal, and personality relevant. When women brandish Kinsey to defend a clitoral fixation, they wrap themselves in science against their own growth. I have heard it many times in my office. So have my colleagues. Why is this so dangerous? Because most other forms of frigidity eventually hurt enough to force a reckoning. The clitoridal woman is comfortable enough to drift. She can ruin a life sweetly, never knowing why closeness cools, why tenderness thins, why marriage turns gray. Complacency is her chief risk. Therefore, I counsel such women to be more than usually suspicious of their own rationalizations, more than usually brave about naming the problem, and more than usually insistent on moving through it. First truth, there is nothing shameful here. You did not choose immaturity. Your body, offered two routes, took the safer road under the press of fear and misinformation. Adults around you likely misinformed you. You are not to blame for how the knot was tied. You are responsible for untying it now. Name the fact. Clitoral fixation is immaturity, not moral failing, developmental arrest. The joys beyond it are not imaginary, and they are not frightening. They are the ordinary privileges of a completed feminine sexuality. One practical lever that often helps: see the husband. Women with this fixation routinely insist, even when they understand their immaturity, that their husbands do not mind prolonged manual stimulation, perhaps even prefer it. In my practice, that has never proved true. A husband whose wife moved from clitoral fixation to vaginal orgasm told me recently, "I feel like a man again." Your wife's response in intercourse, that's everything. If she can't, you slowly lose faith in yourself. Then you lose interest in making love. Another, earlier in treatment and very tired, said, "If there were no end in sight to this kid stuff, the endless stroking, I think I'd give up on sex. It's lost its fun." He was not petty. He was human. And yet, here is an important counterweight. Men tolerate this for a long time. I have not seen marriages end for this reason alone. The greater danger is subtler. The woman rejects the man, withholding, postponing, bristling, rather than face her problem. She pushes him away without knowing she is doing it. The hallmark of clitoridal fixation is evasion, looking anywhere but at the truth, trying everything but what works. I have watched women chase drugs, surgeries, hormone shots, even yoga regimens as if the body could be tricked into maturity while the mind dug in its heels. I have also watched them turn to glossy manuals that prescribe a carnival of positions, as if variety could heal a phobia. Variety is delightful for healthy lovers. It is not a cure for a block. The entire Kama Sutra cannot undo a clitoral fixation. Attempting it as cure invites one more failure and one more sigh. Another common fear I want to lay to rest, because it terrifies needlessly. "Doctor, I think I'm homosexual." A young nurse said this to me between sobs. She had been married a year. She could not climax in intercourse. She required prolonged clitoral stimulation. Her evidence for homosexuality? A dream of hugging her head nurse and feeling warm and safe. And, at 12, mutual touching with a girlfriend. We set the record straight. She was not homosexual. A lesbian woman prefers women, falls in love with women, and has no true interest in men. That was not her. Her dream simply expressed a wish for a mothering figure to protect her through a frightening passage. A wish she unconsciously assigned to me by choosing a woman psychiatrist. Childhood play of that sort is common, and unless it persists into adolescence and beyond, generally harmless. Do not frighten yourself with ghost stories. Why the confusion? Early on, many girls equate clitoris with penis. It stands out, it behaves, it gives local pleasure, so the mind slides into the fantasy. If my pleasure is here, perhaps I am like a boy. Perhaps I must want girls. No, your clitoris is not a little penis. It is part of the female apparatus, meant to awaken you toward the vagina, not instead of it. We will return to this in treatment with care. Let me summarize the ground we have covered across the last 3 chapters, because together they explain why female frigidity is so frequent, and why it is so curable, biological asymmetry. The male orgasm is a biological necessity for conception. The female orgasm is not required for the race to continue. Thus, female orgasm is more vulnerable to psychological storm, fear, shame, misinformation, than the male's. Maternal awe and dread. Motherhood requires a woman to outrun self-preservation, placing her child before herself in 1,000 ways. Mishandled in a girl's mind, this becomes terror, and terror teaches the pelvis to close. Fear of maternity is the quickest road to frigidity, dual orgasmic potential. Women possess 2 potential routes to release. The clitoral route is early and infantile. The vaginal route is mature and fulfills the design of feminine sexuality. Millions are stalled at the first because it offers enough pleasure to avoid change. None of this is cause for self-contempt. It is cause for clarity and action. You did not invent your anatomy or your upbringing. You can decide what to do next. And what comes next is neither exotic nor humiliating. It is a progression every mature woman has already taken. Knowledge, attitude, practice, and the steady abandonment of fear until the body discovers what it was made to do. Your anatomy is not your jailer. Properly understood, it is your map. Follow it past the cul-de-sac and into the wide road. The life waiting there is not theoretical. It is warm and immediate, and it belongs to you. Chapter 8. Total and Partial Frigidity. We have already named the main kinds of frigidity. Now I want you to see them, moving, speaking, making dinner, quarreling, submitting, resisting, because cases give the mind what abstractions cannot, a mirror. In that glass you may recognize your own posture, even if the face is not yours. You will notice two things as we go. First, each pattern has its own signature. How desire starts, or fails to, where sensation lives or doesn't, the typical quarrels, the psychosomatic echoes. Second, beneath these different surface patterns runs the same subterranean river. Early love wrongly tangled, fear installed where tenderness belonged, and then years of ingenious evasions built to protect the fear. I will begin at the bottom of the scale with total frigidity, and then move through partial frigidity in its several guises, ending with the common threads that matter for cure. Case Y. Patricia A. Total frigidity. Scale 0. You have met Patricia. The summary is simple and grim. No sexual sensation anywhere. Pain with entry. Dread beforehand. Disgust afterward. Months between appointments. Power struggle as marital method. A father adored to idolatry. A mother dimmed to a shadow. The little girl's sexuality overstimulated, then forced underground too early. Puberty arrived to find a sealed cellar. Adolescence, with its long, soft rehearsal for surrender, never took place. A wedding ring placed on a child's finger. Why rehearse Patricia again? Because she shows all the hallmarks of total frigidity at once. No warming up phase. Kissing, touching, proximity, all inert. Vaginismus-like tightening. Mechanical preparations become ordeals. Rage and disgust displaced onto the husband. He is white and skinny, yet nothing but a disgusting sexual organ. The mind cannot keep its distortions consistent. Post-act depression and self-loathing, dirty and used. Grand impersonal accusations. He is selfish. He exploits me. He was gentle. He tried. Underlying worship of father. Husband as usurper, or in the other pole, as father double, therefore taboo. When such a woman is helped, it is never by technique, gadgets, or obliging contortions. It is by untying the first knot, the child's love for father, frozen into terror and perfectionism. The child's competition with mother, preserved like a relic. The child's conviction she must excel at everything except the one thing that terrifies her, being a woman. Once that knot loosens, the body follows like a released spring. Case 2. Joan R. Partial frigidity with near orgasm, scale 70-85. Joan is the woman who reaches high flame and then cannot tip the lamp. She warms easily, stays excited, and perhaps once in 10, crosses the threshold into a small, thin climax that leaves her oddly worse the next day. Anxious, sore-backed, quarrelsome. Her dream revealed what her waking mind could not admit, that the highest pitch of feeling with her husband unconsciously reawakened the forbidden tenderness toward her father. The mind defended itself by calling the father a criminal rapist, by summoning policewomen to punish the girl, and then kindly by letting one policewoman forgive. Once Joan understood the joke her unconscious was playing at her expense, the backaches retired, and the threshold stopped being a cliff. Signature points for this pattern. Plenty of desire and lubrication. The engine runs, no or weak climax, followed by tension discharge into the body, back pain, headache, insomnia, sudden quarrels over trifles. Fundamentally intact marriage, respect, liking, and everyday tenderness present. Early father attachment present but not engulfing. A decent mother-daughter tie that can be recruited to forgive the girl's adult love. Treatment is brief when the structure is light. Show her the trick she is playing on herself, and the body, so eager already, does the rest. Case 3. Elaine M. The clitoridal, masculine type, scale 35-60, type problem. Elaine was 32, glossy, bright, witty. She could climax, quickly and reliably, if stroked by hand. During intercourse she went numb. "It's like the lights in that room are off," she said, pointing to her pelvis. If her husband tried to continue after she had climaxed clitorally, she felt vaguely invaded and asked him to finish fast. Her portrait shows the clitoridal fixation cleanly. Rapid clitoral orgasm via manual stimulation. Dulling during penile vaginal entry, as if the room went dim. Post-climax irritability or hollowness if intercourse continues. Insistence that he doesn't mind, he prefers it, contradicted by his tired sorrow. A brisk, managerial, erotic attitude. Schedules, requests, checklists. The heart of surrender missing. History? A neat cluster. A careful, slightly chilly mother. A father who was affectionate but boyish and teasing. A 7th grade discovery that clitoral rubbing soothed her to sleep like a thumb. By 16, she could bring herself to climax. By 22, she had learned to coach boyfriends. "It works. Why change?" she would tell herself. When marriage required more than works, the whole scaffold shook. What helped? Naming the fixation without shame. This is not badness. It's unfinishedness. Reversing the order of pleasure. For 3 months, she and her husband reserved clitoral touch for after intercourse, if needed. At first she panicked. Then she found she could ride vaginal sensation longer than she believed. Reassurance about homosexuality. She brought the standard fear. No, liking clitoral pleasure does not make you a man nor a lover of women. Your mind mistook organ for identity, playing with thickness and stillness. Many clitoridal women are less frightened by deep pressure than by rapid friction. Learning still entry and gentle pelvic holds let her feel full without feeling hunted. At 6 months, she had her first unmistakable vaginal climax, surprised by the tears that rose with it. "Now I understand the hymns in church," she said dryly, and both of us laughed. Case 4. Ruth S. The all-mother type, scale 0, anomaly. Ruth could feel nothing genitally. She never had, before marriage, within marriage, or after 3 children delivered easily and nursed contentedly. She adored her husband, was cheerful, generous, practical. He was content sexually, oddly enough. He liked closeness, was slow by nature, and, as he put it, "I get lit by her loving me, not by her performance." I include Ruth to prevent a useful truth from becoming a tyrannical one. Ruth was not depressed, not quarrelsome, not punishing. She was the rare sexually anesthetic woman whose character was otherwise healthy and whose marriage functioned. I did not urge change. I urged watchfulness, against overprotection of children, against making the household a monastery, against quietly turning a good-natured husband into a novice. She nodded, smiling, and went home to make soup. Case 5. Marta K. Psychic frigidity. Orgasm present. Love impossible. Marta could climax, easily, repeatedly, yet could not sustain a relationship beyond 3 months. At the first whiff of tenderness she fled, sometimes literally. Her history carried the bleak explanation. Seduction by a trusted caretaker at 8, then a mother who accused her of inviting it. The body learned that sex is possible, even efficient. The heart learned that trust is fatal. We worked not on technique, but on terror, betrayal, and the right to choose a man who did not reenact the crime. When at last she stayed long enough to quarrel and repair, we both celebrated. For her, the first lullaby after sex was the true orgasm. Case 6. Nora P. Partial frigidity from fear of conception. Scale 60-80. Nora's sexuality vanished the day a friend's emergency. C-section story took root in her imagination. Before that, her orgasms were reliable. After, she could barely feel a stir. She solved it by increasing outer stimulation. Predictably, the interior dimmed more. Her cure was equally predictable. Real information about pregnancy and birth, replacing folk horror. Contraception she trusted, and a long, frank conversation with her husband in which she admitted, through tears, "I am terrified you'll get me killed." 2 cycles later, orgasm returned as if it had been on holiday. What distinguishes the types, and what unites them? Total frigidity is cold before, cold during, cold after, no warming, no lubrication, pain, disgust, dread, and often a life organized around power struggles and perfectionism. Partial frigidity spans from everything but the crest to thin, unsatisfying crests with next-day fallout. Clitoridal fixation offers quick release that cheats the deeper system. It breeds managerial sex, evasion, and eventual marital sorrow. Psychic frigidity masks a terror of intimacy under perfectly working reflexes. The all-mother anomaly sits outside the rule. She is frigid genitally and well everywhere else. What unites almost all but the anomaly? An early father problem. Too distant, too teasing, too engulfing, and a mother relationship that either failed to bless the girl's femininity or actively shamed it. Fear of motherhood, not the reality of it, but the imagined catastrophe installed by gossip, ignorance, or maternal bitterness. Evasion as a style. Pills, positions, surgeries, manuals. 1,000 ways to do anything except look at the true cause. A short diagnostic for yourself. These questions are not for self-accusation. They are flashlights. Where is your pleasure located? Only clitoral? Vagina goes dim on entry? Or does the pleasure spread and deepen inside? What happens the next day? Quiet contentment? Or headaches? Back pain? Quarrels over nothing? What story do you tell about men? Exploiters? Boys? Dangerous? Or particular human beings? One of whom you chose? What did your mother teach you about periods, pregnancy, birth? Blessing or curse? Chapter 11. The Masculine Woman. She entered composed, lacquered, immaculate, hair glossed to a quiet shine, skin like porcelain, every stitch and buckle deliberate. The presentation was exquisitely feminine. The temperature was not. My first thought, she is costumed for a part, proved correct. I will call her Tony. Her nickname in life, as in childhood, was a boy's. Tony's picture is the classical clitoridal, so-called masculinity complex pattern of frigidity. Feminine surface, masculine stance, and a sexuality held safely at the threshold of true surrender. Tony's situation: age and family, 30, married 7 years, one son aged 5. Symptoms that brought her: 2 years of incapacitating migraines, up to 3 weekly, beginning when the marriage first soured. Marriage climate. She had come to despise her husband's passivity, his love of small pleasures, his reluctance to strive, his contentment with modest earnings and friendly card games. We could rot, she said. Career, brilliant, Ivy degree, top of her class, then an MBA, and by 30, chief buyer of women's apparel for a national firm, one of the top positions in the country. Salary, 3 times her husband's. Ambivalence about work. Once proud, now guilty, phoning the nurse 5 times a day about the child, begging her employer for part-time, then accepting a raise and going home depressed. Pregnancy and delivery, marked antenatal depression, constant somatic distress, and a near-certain conviction she would die in childbirth. Yet delivery was physically uncomplicated. All this is typical of the pattern. These women frequently marry gentle, affiliative men, then recoil from the very gentleness that made them feel safe. They envy what they have selected and punish what they envy. Tony's sexual pattern: foreplay, some pleasure with back caresses, brief tolerance for labial touch, strong preference for direct clitoral stimulation and impatience with anything else. Orgasm, clitoral only. Vaginal lubrication present at times, but the vagina itself was sensate only as a canal, not a source of pleasure. No inward spreading waves, no involuntary pelvic draws, no whole body release. Intercourse, often avoided or placed second. She commonly preferred mutual masturbation. If they had intercourse, she would request manual climax afterward. On occasion, she climaxed clitorally in the woman on top position. She was at pains to attribute this solely to mechanical contact, not to its implicit assumption of control. Initiation, almost always hers. She explained this as his insensitivity to cues. In truth, it suited her to set the tempo and cap the depth of encounter. Frequency versus affection. Strikingly, sexual frequency did not fall when tenderness did. Her sexuality had been split off from love. She could pursue the relief while refusing the relation. 2 days before the marital contempt and migraines began, she experienced, for the first time, a distinct vaginal stirring during intercourse. It rose midway, lasted, And then, at the brink, she flipped back into her habitual clitoral release. She noted it, felt pleased, forgot it, and within 48 hours began the campaign against her husband's character. The timing is not an accident. In such women, the first authentic vaginal sensation often provokes panic. The mind will scorch the field rather than risk returning to it. How she became this woman. The blueprint is plain. Father, cold, self-absorbed, business preoccupied. Affection and notice reserved for Tony's younger brother. A daughter watches. To be female is to be unseen. To be male is to qualify for warmth. Mother. Competent, fashionable, largely absent, back in the marketplace when Tony was 7, home briefly in the evenings. No daily apprenticeship to the soft arts of femininity, little modeling of woman's joy in her destiny. Child logic. To be loved, be a boy. In body she could not. In manner she would. She fixed upon the clitoris as a symbolic little penis, nurtured clitoral masturbation through adolescence, and pursued male-coded victories. Grades, titles, offices, money, with a tireless, boyish zeal. Instruction about sex. Clean, sensible, untraumatic, yet sterile. Biology without benediction cannot carry a frightened girl into womanhood. No one told her in voice and gesture, "This is beautiful. You are safe. It is good to be a woman." Lacking that sanction, she concluded that true surrender is death. Thus the core defense: identify with the aggressor, the male, and keep pleasure on the clitoral ledge where power remains in her hand. The vagina, center of feminine relatedness, is declared enemy territory. Approach it and she must attack something: her husband, her head, migraines, or herself. Hallmarks of the masculine, clitoridal, type erotic locus fixed externally. Quick clitoral release. Inner canal goes dim on entry. Sex under management. She initiates. She chooses position. She ends on schedule. Partner selection paradox. Chooses gentle men, then despises them. Cannot abide real male authority either. Achievement substitution. Flourishes in male-coded arenas. Grows vague, guilty, or bored with homemaking and maternity. Pregnancy anxiety. Outsized dread, often somatized, not explained by facts. Feminine costume. Masculine stance. The exterior is a perfect doll. The interior sits quarterback. Not every clitoridal woman carries the whole cluster. Not every professional woman is clitoridal. We are speaking of a structure, not a resume. Treatment. What changed and how? The task is not to erase her strength, but to reconcile it with surrendered womanhood. Name the fixation without shame. Clitoral dominance is not sin. It is unfinished development. This dissolves defensiveness, the first obstacle. Reorder the sequence. For a season, clitoral touch becomes dessert, not appetizer. Entry is gentle, often still at first. The couple learns pressure and presence before friction. This lets the vaginal field wake without being chased. Address the father wound. Bless the mother within. She must mourn the man who did not choose her and release the childish vow, "I will never need a man." In parallel, she must install a benediction she never received. It is good to bleed, to swell, to bear, to nurse, to age. A woman's road is noble. Exchange contempt for truth. Tony cataloged her husband's faults precisely when he began to touch the buried nerve. Seeing the sequence broke the spell. The migraines receded as the attack stopped. Restore mutuality. He speaks plainly of his hurt, of what managed sex did to him. Real men do not abandon such wives. They do, however, grow quiet and sad. Hearing this without defense is curative. Contraception and childbirth reality. Facts replace folklore. Terror shrinks when it is named and measured. Permission for delight. The first unmistakable vaginal climax arrived not with an exotic technique, but in an ordinary embrace after these repairs had taken hold. She wept, then laughed. So that is what the hymns are about. Outcome and cautions. Tony did not lose her competence. She lost her war with womanhood. Her migraines ceased. The contempt melted. The child became a joy instead of an item on a ledger. She kept working, less heroically, more humanly, and found that the house, once scorned as a waste, had specific pleasures known only to those who choose them. 2 cautions. Do not mistake this pattern for homosexuality. The clitoral fixation imitates a male locus of pleasure. It does not dictate a female object of love. Do not imagine that manuals of positions will cure a moral fear. Variety delights the healthy. It cannot baptize the frightened. Helene Deutsch described the masculinity complex as active and aggressive tendencies that conflict with the remaining feminine inner world. Precisely. The cure is not to kill the active, but to seat it under the feminine crown. When that happens, the woman who once quarterbacked can finally play the most difficult, most exalted position in life, lover, and love it.